Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I am your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 128. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that like button, and down in the comment section, let me know of the top guys in the field this week on Draftkings, from Rory, Xander, and Wyndham Clark. Who are you playing? Because I think a lot of people are going to want those guys in their lineups, and just interested to see where a lot of people are going to go. So leave that down in the comments. But this week, we are going to be diving into the Wells Fargo Championship. Quickly recap the Byron Nelson. It was okay, obviously a pretty weak field, but it was still pretty good golf and pretty interesting on Sunday. Had a lot of guys up there that were fighting for the win, and kind of seemed like none of them really wanted the win, because no one really just wanted to run away with it. No matter how many chances they had, they just kept giving it back, or just, obviously Cole's at the end that was awful, just terrible. One of the worst collapses we've ever seen. So he definitely choked. Knapp was just terrible. Saturday was still striking the ball very well, hitting a ton of greens, and just couldn't make a birdie. And down the stretch, he just fell apart, similar to what he did in Mexico. And that sucked, because I had the outright on him. I had the top 6 each way. He didn't even get the each way at the end. So it was just a brutal finish from that standpoint. But Pendrith ends up coming away with it. So good for him. It's nice to see him win. I not a crazy big fan of the guy, but definitely like to see him win over probably Coles. So would have liked Knapp and a little bit more money, but I'm fine seeing Pendrith win. And it was definitely a good tournament overall. Definitely better than what I thought it was going to be with the field. A very, very weak field, but it is an interesting tournament, an interesting course. As I said last week, it's nice to see a birdie fest every once in a while. And obviously last week was, because guys were going low, and just wish that Knapp could have pulled it out. Also could have had the Keith Mitchell each way, but he couldn't do anything on Sunday. Adam Scott I had a top 20 on him. He couldn't get there. So, it was very close to being a huge week, and ended up being a brutal one. But we move on to the Wells Fargo Championship. Obviously, another signature event right before a major. I don't know why they keep doing these big events right before majors or right after majors. Maybe spread them out a little bit and make them mean a little bit more. But here we are, and it is obviously a very, very strong field at a course that we know. So I do think it's going to be a good tournament. Obviously, we are played at Quail Hollow, and it is a 7,530 yard par 71 with Bermuda greens. Is overseeded, but Bermuda should be popping through this time of year. Home of the Green Mile, one of the most difficult closing 3-hole stretch on tour. Basically, if you got guys that are trying to make the cut on Friday and they're coming up on that 3-hole stretch, might be a little bit sketchy. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Also, I wouldn't go counting any winnings on Sunday before guys get through this stretch. But if you can basically manage the Green Mile throughout the 4 days, I definitely think you're in a very, very good position. But there are 3 par 5s on the course, 4 par 3s, and 11 par 4s. 6 of the par 4s are 450 to 500 yards. 2 of them are just over 300 yards, depending on where they place the tees on those days. One of them might be drivable, possibly. And then you got 2 over 500 yards. So most of the par 4s will play pretty difficult. Par 3s play difficult as well. They're long, and the shortest of them is 184 yards, so not crazy, but the longest is 249. So definitely some long par 3s there. Definitely going to have to manage those throughout the week. And then you absolutely have to score on these par 5s. I know we say that every week, that they're the easiest holes on the course and you got to take advantage, but really more so here. We've seen the winners just absolutely destroy par 5s, and it's a huge reason why they go on to win. So you definitely want to be making your birdies on the par 5s here. Off the tee matters quite a bit. Distance definitely doesn't hurt. Average drive is 300 yards. Fairways are pretty hard to hit, so guys really aren't too concerned about hitting fairways. So only about 54% of fairways are hit off the tee. So there's not a ton of trouble as long as you don't go in the water. There are some trees, but they're a little bit back from the fairway. So really it's just grip it and rip it. And guys that do have some length do have a little bit of an advantage here. Now you don't strictly need bombers. You do have golfers that can find the fairway as long as they can hit their long irons that will be fine and do actually tend to play well here. So similar to last week, I mean, we do see a ton of long irons. It's really odd because this course is kind of similar to TPC Craig Ranch, just not as easy. So you definitely want the long irons. Almost a third of all approach shots come from 200 plus yards, and then another 22% from 175 to 200 yards. So definitely, I'd say that would be probably the most important thing that you want this week is guys that can hit those long irons. These greens are large, but even with that being said, if you're hitting from 200 plus yards, you're not going to hit a ton of greens in regulation, and it comes in a little lower than tour average at 62% of greens hit. So big greens, probably not a close proximity to the hole, especially coming from 200 yards, which brings three putts into play quite a bit. So there are a lot of three putts here, and one of the main reasons of that is not just the size of the green, but actually Quail Hollow boasts one of the highest rates of misses inside of 10 feet. So just because you see a guy hit it close inside of 10 feet, don't automatically count that as a made putt because there's a possibility they might be missing it. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that this week. Basically, whoever's hitting those long irons good and being able to make their putts and score well on the par fives is what we're looking for. There are 70 guys in the field, and this is a no cut event, which it's really, really stupid. I mean, they could easily do it like the other signature events and just, make it 80 guys and drop it down to 50. Even if you just made it 70 and dropped it to 60, just have a cut. Nobody likes the no cut event. I get you're trying to appease the golfers so that they get paid more, but there's other ways you can do that without just absolutely tarnishing your tournaments. It's just stupid what the PGA continues to do. But anyways, we are here to talk the actual golfers and who we like this week for DraftKings and from a betting standpoint. And at the very top, we have Rory McIlroy, 11,800, currently sitting at about 8-1 on the books. I really, really, really want to bet Rory to win this week, but I don't know if I can do it at his current number. Right now, I'm kind of dragging my feet on who I want to bet. I have a lot of guys in mind. I just don't know exactly what I want to do. If maybe Rory slips a hair, which I don't think he will, because I do think enough people are even betting him at that 8-1 number. And now that Ludwig has withdrawn, he is the clear favorite in this field, but I don't think I can get there from a betting standpoint. Now, from a DraftKings standpoint, I am absolutely going to play him. 11,800 is pretty pricey, but we do have a pretty strong field here, and I do think the 6K range is absolutely in play. You have a no cut event, so it's not like you have to worry about your scrubs missing the cut. And placement points will probably come into play quite a bit for those guys down the in the lower range. So just something to keep in mind there is you can't just have guys that are there. Obviously, with a no cut event, everybody's playing all four rounds, so you are going to need them to do some scoring. But when we get there, I do think there are guys that can make Rory lineups work. Also, Xander, only $300 less, 11,500. He has been incredible this year, basically a top 10 machine. At this price, I'd probably rather go Rory, but I'm interested to see what the ownership between these guys is because if Rory is definitely much slower owned, I'd probably rather play Rory anyway. So I'm probably going to be going there as far as between Rory and Xander. Now, with that being said, Wyndham Clark is probably my favorite at the top, and I highly, highly doubt that I will be alone. You have such a significant savings from 11,008 to only 10,005 for Wyndham Clark. So $1,300 savings is huge. Obviously, won here. He's been great at these big events since winning here last year. Basically, an entirely different caliber of golfer. Now, no one has ever gone back to back here, but I'm still considering betting him. 18-1, I think, is a good price in this field, and I think if I'm not going to go Rory, I can probably go Wyndham and maybe two more guys a little bit further down the board. So I'm definitely considering it, but I definitely like the three of these guys up top here. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all of them in my player pool. I probably could. I could definitely make it work. But what that would most likely mean is that I'm playing a significant percentage of some of the cheaper guys down here because I don't want to differentiate too much. Trying to keep my player pool pretty concise this week. Really not going to go overboard a week before a major. But if we go further down the board, as I said, Oberg has withdrawn, so we don't need to talk about him. Nobody's going to play Cantlay. He hasn't really played well here in the past, but if you're looking for a pivot, he's played better recently. So 9,800, I don't think is a terrible price for him. Same with Fleetwood. I've heard a couple people bring up his name, but he's been playing good golf. 9,500, I think, is a good price for him. I don't know if I love him here, but if you're getting him at 10%, maybe even sub 10%, it could make some sense. And I absolutely love Homa. As of right now, he is the only one that I have made a wager on. Obviously, he's played incredibly well at the Wells Fargo in 2019. He won, and sorry, totally spaced out there. So he plays well here. He's won before. In 2020, he even won, which wasn't even at Quail Hollow. It was at TPC Potomac. So, I mean, just Wells Fargo in general, regardless of where it's played, he seems to play well. He's gained strokes on approach in each of his last three appearances here. So, definitely like that. It's been an okay year for him so far. 2024, it's been better at some of the bigger events. He's had some mediocre performances, but has 5 top 20 finishes, with his best finish being a third at the Masters. He also finished 8th at Arnold Palmer. Irons have been a bit spotty, but we know he tends to show up at certain courses, and this is absolutely one of them. So I've made the outright on him at 25 to 1. I've seen him as low as 20 to 1. So I absolutely love that. I would be playing a ton of him. I know he's going to be popular, but I really don't care. I love Homa. You play Homa at Homa courses, and this is absolutely one of them. Next, two guys I don't really know what to do. Colin Morikawa, I kind of want to play him. He's been playing a little bit better lately. The long irons have been an issue, but he's gone back to his original swing coach where he was the best in the field from that proximity. So maybe that helps him out. I don't know if I want to get there, though. Kind of want to see what the ownership is before I make a final decision there. Hovland has been injured, I guess, and just hasn't looked right at all. You would think that this is a course that suits him well. So if he's coming in at very, very low ownership, I think it could be worth a flyer in some larger field GPPs. But as I said, I'm trying to keep my player pool pretty concise, so I don't know if I'm going to get there on him. I love Thigala, another guy. I missed the number on him. I don't think I'm going to bet him at 25 to 1, but maybe a top 20 or something on him. I really like him. He's been hitting it really well with the driver, and at a course where you can mash it off the tee. He's actually 12th in driving distance over the last 24 rounds. So definitely like that. He's pretty good at the long irons over 200 yards. So Thigala's been showing up a lot this year and playing some good golf. So I definitely like him at 9,100. Hideki also, came out. Masters was a little bit of a letdown, but everybody was on him and he was very popular. So maybe that keeps his ownership down a hair. I highly doubt it because at 8,900, you got a good price under 9K. And with how well he's been playing this year, if you look at him statistically, I mean, 14th off the tee. He's third on those par fours from 450 to 500 yards, 11th from 200 plus, ninth in scrambling, ninth on approach, first around the green. So, I mean, Hideki checks all the boxes. Another guy that, if I don't go Rory, could possibly consider at 30 to 1. And then Cam Young, I've heard a lot of people on him. I tend not to play him very much. He has a good finish here, but then also a meh finish. I don't know what to do with Cam Young. I do think that he could play well here. I think it's a place that could suit him, but not really incredible from the 200 plus yard, which is kind of surprising for him. So as of right now, I don't have him in the player pool. Also, don't have Fitzpatrick or Si Woo, but those are, again, two other guys that I think in larger field GPPs, they are going to get totally overlooked. So if you want to go there, could make some sense. And I would lean more Fitzpatrick. I do think that this is a place that fits him a little bit better, although he hasn't really played too great in the past. But I like Justin Thomas here, and I don't think he's going to be very popular because really hasn't been great recently, but he's had some good performances at Quail Hollow. Obviously, he won the PGA Championship here back in 2017. He missed the cut in 2016, but otherwise hasn't finished worse than 26th. Came 14th last year, 7th back in 2015. He's gained strokes both off the tee and on approach in all 5 of his appearances here. So definitely got to like that. He's coming off a top 5 performance at Heritage, gained strokes in every strokes gain metric. So looked pretty good there. I think he's absolutely in play here. I love him as a DraftKings play, not so much as a wager, but I do think that he goes a little bit overlooked here. I think a lot of people are going to be going to those guys up a little bit higher in Thigala and Matsuyama, and maybe drop down a little bit into the 7K range. So I like Justin Thomas there at 8,500. Not really going to be playing a lot of guys in this lower 8K range. Thinking about playing Finau. Hasn't really played great at Quail Hollow, but I don't know. I do think that he could play well here. Has been showing some flashes here recently. So he's second in that proximity from over 200 yards. And that is one of the main things I am looking at this week. And 10th from 175 to 200. So definitely like that at 8,000. I think it's a really good price for Finau. I love Will Zalatoris, another guy that he's in consideration for a bet. And I'm very interested to see what his ownership comes in at, because obviously withdrawing last week with a back injury, it's a little sketchy, but I mean, is it a real injury? Would he risk coming out here and playing with a major next week? I highly doubt it. I really just think he's been playing a ton of golf and he didn't want to play last week. So he pulled out and said, oh yeah, my back's not good. Or maybe it just tightened up a little. And with his history, he said, there's no way I'm risking this. And then he's going to come out here this week and play the event that actually matters. So I do like Zalatoris. I will be playing him in DraftKings. And even if I don't make the outright on him, probably going to have some sort of wager on him. I do like Corey Connors as well. Another guy that's great from that 200 plus yardage range. He's 5th in the field over the last 24 rounds. So I like Connors. Tends to show up at these signature events and some of the bigger events. So I do like him, but I want to keep an eye on his ownership because I could see him getting a little bit popular here. Shane Lowry, I considered it, but as of right now, I don't think I'm going there. But I do think a lot of people are going to feel the same way and just shy away from him. So he could be a low-owned pivot in this range. Someone that's definitely not going to be low-owned is Akshay Bhatia. Another guy, I think regardless of what I do, even if I bet Rory, I might end up betting Bhatia at I think I saw him at 50 to 1 with the each way. So that's definitely a possibility here. Like him at 7,500. I think his ownership is definitely going to be up there, but he's good off the tee. He's good on those par fours from 450 to 500 yards, 7th from 200 plus yards, 13th from 175 to 200. He's 5th in strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds. Like a lot of what Bhatia is doing, he's from the area. So there's just a lot of boxes that he checks here, and I will definitely be playing him. I do also think I'm going to play Jaeger, just a guy that's good off the tee. He's not incredible from that 200-yard range in the bottom half of the field, so not great there. But I do think with the driving, he can possibly make up for it a little bit. So, and then also, if he's missing greens around here, he's pretty good around the greens. I just like where his game's at. He's had some top 5 finishes lately, so I'm considering Jaeger being in the pool as well. Dropping down here, probably going to pick and choose a little bit more here. Not going to Pendrith after the win. Don't really love Horschel. Tom Hoagie, I'm fine with, but I want to see what his ownership's going to be also, because he just lately here has been playing good golf, and he's come back to earth a little bit here recently, but 7,200 is a very good price for him, especially with how well he hits the irons. And as I keep saying, that over 200-yard range, he's very good at it. So I do think that he will be popular, but I want to see how popular he really will be. And then there's some 6K guys that I do like. I want to look into what Keegan's been doing a little bit more lately. I don't know if I want to get there, but I do think that he could play well here. I actually like Ricky Fowler quite a bit. Statistically, it's not going to show up, but he's been showing some flashes lately. This is a place where he's historically played very well. So I'm fine with Ricky Fowler, 6,900. Don't think he's going to get too popular. I like Kurt Kitayama. Has a very strong off the tee game, has some distance off the tee. Also, he can hit those long irons. So I like that. And he's actually second in the field in three putt avoidance. So on these large greens, if guys are going to be three putting a lot, you definitely want that three putt avoidance to come into play. And he's got some boxes checked there. So I do like Kitayama. Lucas Glover is also in play for the long irons. Taylor Moore's not too bad. I don't know. As of right now, I have a star next to him. I don't know that I'm definitely going to get there with him, but I do think that he could play well here. I think he has some of the traits that you might want. 27th last year here, so a pretty good finish. And at 6,700, you would definitely take that in this field. Another guy that's played well here is Brendan Todd, 6,500. Really hasn't been playing great golf recently, though. So it's basically a course history compared to recent history. But as of right now, I think he's absolutely in play. And then I'm going to go back to Jake Knapp. I probably shouldn't, but as I said, I think this is a similar course and you need a similar skill set to what we saw last week. And Knapp absolutely has it. I think he can definitely play well. So striking the ball well, has the distance you want. And I don't think he's necessarily going to be contending for a win. So maybe he doesn't fall apart on the weekend here, but I'm definitely playing Knapp. And then going down further, there's really not a ton of guys down here in the lower sixes, but Emiliano Grillo, 6,300. Not really great form coming in, but it's a guy that has played very well at Quail Hollow. So another Brendan Todd issue of recent form versus course history, but we do know that guys that have played well here historically can play well here again. So I'm fine going to Grillo at 6,300. And if you're playing those guys up top, he definitely gives you some salary relief. So I do like that. Basically, that's what I'm looking at for so far this week. As I said, I haven't decided what I want to do with the bets. So obviously check thehelmsports.com. I will have all my bets up there by Wednesday night. And more important than ever, sign up for the newsletter, because going forward, I am going to post my preview on Monday. Basically, it's going to be the course preview, key stats, some guys that I'm possibly targeting, and my DraftKings thoughts. I'm now doing in the newsletter exclusively. I was doing the hardcore parkour and posting that on the site, but that was on Tuesdays. And I found that, the ownership projections were off and I had to adjust those, and kind of who I was going to fade or who my core four was might be changing. So I was just putting all that in the newsletter anyway. So going forward, rather than doing twice the work and just putting out some irrelevant stuff, I'm going to put everything in the newsletter and it'll be out on Wednesday. So definitely check that out. The hardcore parkour will definitely be in there, and all my final thoughts, weather, final wagers, all that stuff. So check out the Helm Sports on Substack, or just look in the description and the link should be there. But that's going to do it for this week. I do think it's going to be a good week. I mean, we have a big boy field. Again, I wish there was a cut, but we got to make do with what we have, and I'm excited to see this one. Always like Quail Hollow, always like the Wells Fargo Championship. Obviously, this is the last year where Wells Fargo will be the sponsor, but Quail Hollow probably won't be going away. So definitely love this course, and it should be a good week overall. But that's going to do it. Check out thehelmsports.com. Check out the Substack, The Helm Sports. And I'm your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.